Hi everyone, and yeah, hello if you're watching this on replay as well. Also, I just want to say a quick welcome because I know we've had quite a lot of new people into the group over the last week, which is because you guys are coming in for the Improving Spelling Challenge, which is absolutely fantastic, and I'll talk about that quickly at the end as well. But what I wanted to talk to you tonight was revision tips. And obviously, normally, this point in the academic year, we would know the exam dates, everything, we'd worked out like how many days there are to the exam. We'd be thinking strategy, learning quotes, practice questions. And this year, in some ways, it's all completely up in the air. However, every student, I know every year 11 and year 13 student I work with is having assessments after Easter. So even though we're not preparing for formal public external exams, students are still going to be doing revision this Easter. So therefore I thought I'll still go ahead with a live on revision tips because it is still relevant, even though, as I said, the exams are very, very different this year. So that will know they may not be doing an exam in every part of the course. They may have more information than perhaps they would normally do as well. And obviously their exams are going to be marked by their teacher instead of going off for external assessment. But actually some of the principles still remains the same. Also, if your child is in year 9, year 10, lower down the school, this is still, useful, relevant advice as well that you could take forward in future as well. So my first tip then is about that all-important revision timetable. Now, for your timetable, it needs to be sensible. You need to think about what realistically for your child, how many hours they're realistically going to do. Now, I would say it's very hard to put a number because everyone is different. I would say in the Easter holidays, when they're not in school, this is not for a school day, but when they're not in school, probably about 4 hours a day. Now, some of you may go 4 hours, and then some of you might be like, oh, is that it? Everyone is different. Everyone's going to have different tolerances for what they can do. But generally, thinking back to my sort of revision days, I usually planned in about 4 hours a day in the Easter holidays when I was in that final stretch. And preparing for final assessments. But obviously you've got to tailor it, and I know some of your kids, you might be like, there's no way they're going to revise for 4 hours a day, and that's fine. So you've got to be realistic about what they're actually going to be able to do. If they're an ADHD kid, they're probably not going to be able to sit and focus necessarily for that amount of time. You tailor it to what they can do. It's better that they do something rather than nothing at all. In terms of when to revise, so again, thinking about like Easter holidays when they're not in school. Obviously when they're in school it's a bit different, but at the moment, think about what times of the day suit them best for revision. So for me, I always like to get up and get straight on with it, and then perhaps be done by by sort of mid-afternoon. I'd be done for the day, and then I could have the rest of the day to do what I wanted. That was kind of my strategy, but it doesn't work for everyone. Some people may prefer a lazier morning to get going, and then they hit it maybe after lunch. So again, your child, you've got to work with your natural rhythms of your child. What is going to suit them best? Now, in terms of the actual structure of the timetable, you do need to look at the exam dates, obviously the assessment dates. Fingers crossed by now your child should know when they're going to be assessed, and they should have been given that information by the school. Obviously it's not standardized across the country this year like it would normally be, but they should have that information. If they don't, if they're like, which is entirely possible with some teenagers, press them, get in touch with the school if they're not giving you the information, because they should know by now what they're going to be assessed on, when they're going to be assessed on it. It is very, very hard for the schools because obviously they've had this thrust on them as well, but your kids should have some idea, hopefully, of when assessments are coming up. Now, with the exam timetable, the temptation is always, I see kids make this mistake, the temptation is to only revise for the subject that's coming up first, because the rationale is, well, I've got more time after that exam to revise for the others. But if you think about it, if you spent like 4 weeks revising for geography and then the week after was maths, actually, you've given 4 weeks of revision time to geography and only 1 to maths. It's got to be more balanced. So it's got to be a balance. Yes, you might want to shift the balance slightly in favor of the subjects that are coming up first, but don't just leave the ones that are coming up later as well, because that could be a bit of a costly mistake. With this revision timetable, yes, it needs to be clear, readable, systematic, but it doesn't need decorating. And bless them, it tends to be a girl thing. But the amount of beautiful revision timetables that are color coded, they've got flowers and hearts around them. That's just a waste of time that could be spent revising. So no, just clear and legible. Make sure they have one, but they do not need to decorate it. The other thing with the timetables, as well as having like the subjects on each day, have the topics that they're going to focus on. And so using English, obviously my familiar home ground, you know, if they're going to have the timetable, then they might say like, right, today I'm going to do Macbeth. Tomorrow I'm going to do A Christmas Carol. Thursday I'm going to do Unseen Poetry. So they're breaking it down into topics as well for each day. And then that brings me on to strategy. Point number 2. So it needs to be like a mixture of techniques. It should never just be relying on one style, one type of learning. And it's, you know, they've got to think again, what suits them. Reading notes tends to be the least effective method of revision. If it works, it works. But I know for me, I struggle to concentrate just reading notes. You have to be very, very focused and committed to be able to learn information just from reading it out of a textbook. Probably making notes, making it kinesthetic, you know, actually making notes as you're reading, more likely to retain the information. And also your brain, you know, you're going to be reading actively, processing exactly what you're reading, filtering out what's not relevant as well. So I was just, you know, never really just reading out the textbook. There'd always be some kind of active learning going on as well. However they like to, you know, format your notes, index cards, posters, flashcards, mind maps. But also don't forget the most important and most valuable revision technique of all, practice questions. And then either if you can get teacher feedback on them, brilliant. And in my experience, a lot of students don't ask for teacher feedback when they could do, when teachers would be very happy to mark extra work that they've done, and they don't go and take advantage of it. But otherwise, if that's not possible, for whatever reason, so at least, you know, some kind of self-assessment of the work they need to, you know, if they do a past paper, they need to read it back, reflect on it, perhaps think about what mark they think they would get as well. So there's got to be some kind of feedback from it as well. Also, you know, they can use revision, you know, there's obviously so many brilliant revision resources, and there's a little plug, Bright Sky Tutoring is just about to release its first online course for revision as well. So there are brilliant online resources out there, but beware of them doing everything electronically, because if they're going to have to handwrite in the exam, it's not necessarily that helpful if they've typed everything. I think there should be some pen and paper, timed pen and paper practice exams as well, unless they are able to take the whole exam on a laptop, which some kids will be if their access arrangements permit that. Next thing, in the study environment. Now, obviously in an ideal world, they'd be, you know, in their room, they have their desk and chair, you know, no telly in the room and stuff. But, you know, we've got to be obviously realistic. Not everyone's circumstances are going to be set up for that. But, you know, bare minimum, their space that they're revising in should be clean and tidy, good daylight, the minimum of music. I know it might be really hard if the only place your kid can work is in the kitchen, then it's going to be hard. I know you're going to have to go in and cook meals, but, you know, noise, if you can remove distractions, music only if it helps. I actually did a post on my page the other week about this, about you know, whether music genuinely does help. There's, you know, some research for ADHD in particular that the rhythm of it can actually help with concentration, but it has to be the right kind of music as well. But generally keep distractions to a minimum. And then the night before the exam, don't bother. Last minute cramming doesn't work, and I've had to point this out to some students and have some slightly uncomfortable discussions with them, you know, in the past about last minute cramming. Like, if you don't know it by 4 o'clock the afternoon before, the chance that you are not going to know it for that exam is too late, and it's counterproductive. What students need is an early night. They need to, actually, in some ways, it seems strange to say clear their head, because I know they're trying to retain information, but they need to calm it all down, trust that it's all there when they need it. Obviously, stay hydrated, have a good breakfast in the morning as well. And then other things they could think about for revision, as I mentioned, you know, kind of things online. The TLN, Tutor Learner Network, we're doing so actually next week. I'm doing the English course on there, you know, but there are, I shouldn't be mentioning competitors, but there are competitors obviously out there. There are lots of tutoring companies, lots of places that do, you know, Easter boot camps as well. I would say with those, you know, you want a balance. Because you want your kid probably to have some time to sit and work independently, but same, you know, learning with other students. Obviously, the teachers who run this are going to be qualified experience, going to have lots of little pearls of wisdom as well. So find the balance. I wouldn't ever recommend like the whole 2 weeks they're in courses online, you know, in groups or at study centres, but you know, it is something worth thinking about, particularly if your child does struggle, maybe like with self-motivation, if they need a little bit of a helping hand to get them revising. If you know that if they're left at home, they just won't do a thing, then perhaps think about enrolling them on one of those courses to keep them learning, keep them revising. So those are my main revision tips in what I say is the most bizarre exam year ever, and hopefully will never be repeated, at least, you know, not in these circumstances anyway. I also just mentioned at the beginning improving spelling, so that is happening next week, Wednesday and Thursday. It will be at 8 o'clock, but you don't need to tune in live. Obviously it's lovely if you can, but if you can't, that's no worries at all. You can always catch up. There will be handouts, so look out for those coming in the group as well. The handouts will be really valuable because they will have the strategies that I'm going to go through for spelling. They'll have like the step-by-step, because some of them, like the cued spelling, there's about 10 stages in cued spelling that you need to go through. So having the handout will be really beneficial for those as well. Other things I wanted to mention, if you are interested in small group tuition for English with Bright Sky Tutoring, I'm currently taking bookings. Obviously there are small groups and the spaces are really limited in both of those groups, so do let me know ASAP if you're interested in booking. Key Stage 4 is Saturdays at 10 in the morning. Key Stage 3 Sundays at 11. There is, as I say, weekday things coming. There is a lot more coming for September as well, so watch out for more information on that and lots of exciting news and developments over the next few weeks. I'm going to sign off now because obviously it is the Easter weekend. Have a wonderful Easter Sunday and Monday, and I'll probably, the next time I see you will probably be on Wednesday for the first in our improving spelling. Have a good evening, everyone. See you soon. Bye.